Right, what we're looking at here is a World War II American BC1000 backpack radio set. Now, I've purchased this one over eBay for a friend of mine. Now, of course, before I go passing it on to him, I feel it's would be sensible to take some video of it, with a mind to making a replica one of these. So you can actually buy these labels. People tend to make them, and quite often you can find them around on eBay, someone selling them. But if you want to just knock your own label up, there it is. I might take some measurements on a number of these points once I've just shot some general video. Now you can see the way I'm going to try and do a lot of video of how this actually looks. Quick view of it, overall view of it. Now this lid here is hinged along the back. See, like a piano hinge basically, but it's got springs on it. But whether the springs really work, well, actually they do. See, they actually do work. And then it's got these sort of like locking braces which clip like so, yeah, on each side. Very dusty this. It's not had, I don't know if it's been cleaned since World War II, but there's the various controls up on the top. These here are actually like 1/4-inch jack sockets. Well, they're actually looking a little bit smaller than 1/4-inch, but they may be 1/4-inch. They look, from what I can remember, they're 1/4. This one here is mic. Let's see. I think it says MIC just down here at the bottom at the front of it. Then we've got phone number 1. So these clip back once you've so basically these plugs, little plastic plugs, are to keep the dirt out. See, the spring loader to stop dirt going down inside. Then we've got a volume control with an arrow on it and a little spot on the top just there. So it's an on-off volume control. In fact, it says off just on the side of the casing here, just by this bolt. So you can hear off and then on. So that's the full volume over there. Probably turns around. Wow, it's almost a full loop. About 90% turn on this knob. So as I say, it's an on-off volume control. So you've then got tuning knob here. See this one? With 2 arrows against the side of it and a little hand wheel on it. And that controls the display over in there. See the amount of dust? When I rotate that knob there, you can see the tuning moving inside there. Very, very dirty. See, it's got a channel above it, up and down, and an arrow at the side. What have we got? We've got a squelch control above that with an arrow painted on at the side. So maximum squelch. Imagine a few of you know what squelch is. basically cuts out the noise, the between, you know, people talking. You know, when you hear on a number of old films and so on where they're going, Roger, 5, 4, 3, 2, over and out, and so on. Anyway, what have we got here? We've got something that says relay on this one here, and it's another one of these 1/4" jacks. Don't know where you can get these jacks. It would be nice to find a source for something like this, which are quite modern made, preferably. I don't really want to go buying really expensive World War II originals, but if someone knows something modern that's very similar, that would be brilliant. Right, over here, this is the antenna mounting point. Now this seems to have about a 3/8 threaded brass hole on the top here, socket we'll say. Now this I think is rubber, but I can't really squeeze it in with my fingers, but I'm suspecting it may be. I may be wrong though, it might be metal, and there seems to be a little bit of rubber in between to insulate between the centre and this, because obviously you want to insulate the actual aerial point from the case of the radio. The radio is normally negative screened off to the battery and so on, and obviously the antenna comes from the radio circuitry. Now over here we've got a Pressford dial light. Okay, yeah, so that there is a large button, rubber button with a metal ring around it with 3 small, probably brass screws, little small nuts and bolts with little domed heads on them. See, it says Pressford dial light. Now the dial light, basically you push that and it illuminates the display in there so that you can see it better. Even when it's got 70 years of dust on it, you probably still see it. Now what have we got here? We've got an indicator adjustment. So this here, this large screw, that must adjust the indicator maybe on here. So basically you would adjust that to adjust the fine tuning of the channel display in there. See, to calibrate it, I would guess. Then here at the front we've got AUX phone, yeah, another 1/4" jack, and then over here we've got ground for short antenna. See, it says short antenna, ground for short ant. So I'm guessing, right, it's just a nut on a post which you wind down. So this is basically going to be the case, the negative for the case of the radio. So you could ground a particular type of antenna which would have a small wire coming out of it most likely, and mount that onto there. Yeah, so what have we got in the centre? Plug required in phone number 1 for operator. Sorry, for operation. Keep unused jack closed. Okay, keep unused jack closed. Keep the dirt out of it. Right, so we can now close that lid up again. got to release these two small stay hinges, right, like that. So when you close it, you can see it's got this indent here which closes around the antenna, yeah. Couple of rivets on each side of here, which is what the hinges, the stay hinges, are fixed with. Now, these American World War II sets have these spring toggle clips on them. If you go on eBay, you can actually find the Chinese are making replicas of these spring toggle clips on eBay. Now, you want to find the right ones though, because a lot of them, there's lots of variations on them. Some of them are too big. Now you can see here me putting my fingers next to them. Now here is a metal rule, and what we have here is I'm going to measure them in metric. Now, sorry, there's a bit of paint on this damn rule, so what I'm going to do is we're going to do my usual trick and measure from 10 centimeters, right between 10 and 13.5, so they are 3.5 centimeters wide across the spring, and top to bottom, when they're in operation, they are 5 centimeters long, like so. Yeah. Now they're very nicely designed, these toggle catches, because the spring always makes sure that there is tension. Well, this one is slightly ropey, but it probably would have been brilliant when it was first made. But basically the two springs on these things ensure that there's always tension, downforce on the clasp just here. Some of these others at the top are much better. Now, essentially you've got 4 of these spring toggle clips on the front. Then you've got one on each, you've got 2 on each side. Yeah, you can see there, another 2. And then there's another 4 on the back of it. So there's a hell of a lot of these catches you've got to buy. Now, what I'm tending to think is the ones here at the back, because if you were going to be using this, it will be on your back and you won't see these things. So I'm tempted to say that a lot of the detail on this rear panel doesn't need to be copied, and it will save you the price of 4 of these toggle catches. You could probably go down to a DIY store and buy some cheap ones which don't have these springs on. Then if you were crafty, you could get some small springs and wind them onto the side. You know, if you push a spring on, you know, like basically if you clip the spring over at one point, you can wind the spring on to the side and it'll look like it's a genuine one. You could do that on all of the catches if you wanted to save money, and just go down to your DIY store and buy some simple ones without springs on. You could then just wind some dummy springs over the side, maybe put a bit of hot glue in there to stop them rattling around, yeah, and that'll give you a cheap but quite good effect. Now, this backpack radio has been used, I would say, in a vehicle, because it's got the Vibrator power supply modification at the bottom of this, so there's no batteries in this base unit. See, Vibrator power supply, PP114A/VRC-3 MFP. Don't think there's been anything else. Yeah. Caution: before installing, adjust power supply to proper input voltage. Observe polarity of input cable before operating. Review TN-11-983 packed with equipment. Yeah, okay, so there's a manual, a document, a spec that's been packed with the equipment originally. Now, you notice the bottom of this has a stamped in pattern in the casing. Now, this is what I would say is swaged. It's been stamped in, but you could, if you had a swaging tool, you could stamp or roll your own depression into this. See, it's like a H on this, on the bottom section, but I have a feeling I've seen some of these vibrator power supplies, or battery packs I should say, with an X on them, very similar to the top of the case. You see here this X pattern. Now this is very typical of a American made radio set. Now there's a British backpack radio which was a copy of the American set, and the British one does not have a X like this. It's got a different pattern. I'm trying to think. I have a feeling it's a cross, like so, or just lines running across it. I will put a picture in this video so that you can see the difference. Now, as I was saying about eBay, just back to this. The vibrator power supply doesn't have batteries in it, so it has this cable here which would have ran off to the power supply of the Jeep, most likely. Might have been 6 volt World War II Jeep. Not certain. Most likely 6 volt set, but if it's post-war, the vibrator power supply, it could be 24 volt or 12. It says in here that you adjust the voltage correctly, so you'd need a presumably you need a voltmeter. Now there again, there's the front of the radio, and it's got this H pattern on the front and this X at the top, just the same as the back of the case. Now, overall measurements of this thing, I'm going to take that right from the top of the case there, yeah, down to the bottom, and we are looking at 39.3 centimeters. 39.3 centimeters, or 393 millimeters, yeah, in length. And the width of this radio should be 27.6 or 27.7 centimeters wide. If I were you, I'd round it off to 27.5. Make life easy, and who's going to notice 2 millimeters? So that's 276 or 77 millimeters, yeah. Now, right, eBay. Keep going back to eBay. Right, here is a set of spring clips which I purchased on eBay. Now I was quite lucky because the guy who was selling these in China on eBay sold I think it was 2 sets for £4.80. Yeah, 2 sets for £4.80. So about £2.40 for each one. Now you will notice straight away there is something slightly wrong with these. They've got this little clip on the end here. Now if you look in there, if you put a screwdriver in there and twist the screwdriver sideways, you'll be able to unwrap this little piece off here, and then that leaves you with the standard bar which runs across and will clip onto this. See how similar that is? Pretty amazing that, isn't it? And if I get the clip and stick it next to it, look at that. Isn't that great? You know, it's not identical, but it's not so bad, is it? You know, you could probably do some small modifications and make this shorter, but really, why would you bother? That looks so close, it's not worth the worry. No one's going to notice that. If you do some good detail on the rest of the radio, no one's going to spot this clip being wrong. I will show you some more on eBay. There's a guy flogging these in China now, and there's someone else who's selling them for about £2.80. The guy I bought these off woke up to the fact that he was selling them a little bit too cheap, and then he bumped his price to £5 per toggle clip, and then the next thing you know, he's only got one left, and I wanted, well, a stack of the things. I wanted at least 8 if I ignore the back of the case. So it was a little bit annoying. I did intend to buy more after I'd received the first ones, just to check that they were correct. But you know, the pictures they put of these on eBay are not very sensible. They stick a picture up with it in some sort of weird position, like that, or you know, like that, and it's not. And then they give you a measurement from there to there, which is not how you would want it. You would want it with the clip properly closed, like so, you know, like those, so you can measure the finished closed length. But they're not doing it right. But that's what you get on eBay, isn't it? Now, the way I intend to make this is not like the original set, I don't think. This, as you can obviously see, move these clips, is made out of 2 halves. Your top part is the radio set, and your bottom is the battery or vibrator power supply. Now, I'll give you a quick view of the base of this thing. God, this thing's heavy. Right, there's your base. It's got an X stamped from the, so it's raised on the bottom here. But if I were you, I wouldn't worry too much about that detail. You could weld 2 strips of metal across the bottom of it, I suppose. Yeah, you could drill some holes on the inside of the base before you put the base on, and then weld two bars across the base, couldn't you, if you wanted to worry about that? But personally, I'm more inclined to put some rubber feet on the bottom of the thing. Who's actually going to look at it? And if you put some rubber feet on the base, then if you end up sticking it down inside your vehicle, you know those rubber feet are not going to take the paint off in the vehicle if you're wanting the vehicle to not get worn apart, you know, the paint worn off, I should say. Now, yeah, so I'll tell you what, let's take a measurement from the top of the case here to this join here, and we can see it's 17.3 centimeters to there. Yeah, 17.3. Now, the way I'm going to do this when I make one is I'm just going to make a whole case which is the full length, yeah, and I'm then just going to weld a band around the center and put these clips on, but the clips are not going to actually do anything. They're just going to be fixed on, and they'll operate like they should do, and they'll have the little clips riveted on, but you know, the fastening point riveted on, but they're not going to separate the base from the top, because I don't see any point in doing it to that detail. I'm not going to worry about it. Now, the width of this stamping that's in this is approximately 11 millimeters. You know, if you could get some way of doing it which is 1 centimeter wide, that'll be close enough. And it's 24.3 in length across there, and it's going to be the same at the top across there. Did I measure the distance? Right, probably didn't. Right, from the top indent there down to the base of that channel there, hopefully this is working out, is 11.3 centimeters, yeah? Right, then they've got this like semi what would you call it, ellipse in the center, and that measures 4.7 centimeters top to bottom, and the center of this is 7.4 centimeters. Yeah, 7.4. This appears to be spot welded on somehow. Can't even see the weld, but it's done somewhere under the paint. Exactly why they put that on, I don't know. I would have thought it would have been strong enough, the case, but there must be a reason. Then you can see they've got this little step in the end here. Those little steps on the end will say 1 centimeter, yeah, in from the end. Then you've got this, you know, this gap here, which is about 4, right from the end of this like track at the base. It's about 4.8, but if you want to call it 5 or thereabouts, basically you've just got to stamp in your 1 centimeter cross. 1 centimeter indent from that corner to that corner, with a 1 centimeter step inside, and then round that area off there. Now, how you're going to do that is up to you. I am toying around with making my own swaging tool, which is a metal press of a form which has 2 wheels. One wheel has got an indent in it, and the other wheel presses down into that indent, and once you put a sheet of metal between those two wheels, you then wind the wheels against each other, so it presses one. I can't do this. Should have brought a little pad to draw on. So basically you've got like a cup at the bottom, yeah, on the base wheel, and then the top wheel presses down into that cup. So so think of the profile of two wheels, right? And they've both got bars running through them. I'll show you some pictures on eBay of some which are for sale. You can get some for a swaging tool for around $200 or £200, but it's a lot to pay just for doing an indent in a case, just to be finicky. Now another option is you could just get a different colour paint and paint across on the case, and from 15-20 feet away no one's actually going to really notice. You could just get a marker pen and draw the outline of that on your case, again from a distance, even from here. You know, if you just got an indelible marker, black indelible marker pen, and draw the outer edges of that, it's going to look right, you know, man going past in a vehicle at 10 miles an hour, if he sees that on your back, he's not going to know whether that damn thing is an indent or being painted on. The same goes for you if you're running across a field and there's a crowd watching you. They're not going to notice the difference. Now, I have seen some battery units with that X stamped in them, but I haven't got the dimensions of that. Now, we're going to take some little measurements here. Now, so we're going to say that there is approximately 1 centimetre, and then we're going to say the next point down is 2 centimetres. Keep things simple. And then the point down here at the base of the extended H, we're going to say that you could say it's 9 centimetres, but it's 9.1 if you want to be really silly and finicky about this. And then it's about 10.1, 10.2, thereabouts. As I say, if you're able to make some sort of stamping device or swaging device which can put an indent in sheet metal, then brilliant, go for it. Now, the width of this side of the H here, 24 centimetres. Let's just call it 24 centimetres. And you see they come to this nice rounded end as well. I'm never going to be able to get something to do something that neat. Obviously that is right down the centre, so simple enough. Of course there's a very crucial measurement I haven't given you guys, and that is the width or depth of this thing, which is from the edge 12.7 centimetres. 12.7. So you've got all the big crucial ones here. Now, the other thing is this has D-rings. It has these D-rings stamped on each side. It's not stamped, screwed on each side. And so basically it's a D-ring with a piece of metal wrapped around the D-ring and then bolted down on the casing. So that's up near the top next to this clip. Now you're going to want some measurements of these clips. Right, the one for the power supply is right in the centre, but the one up at the top is off to one side because of this bloody big D-ring. So let's get some measurements. I'm going to measure right to the center of this thing, of this top, and we're looking at 5.3 centimeters across the top there to the center point of that. So that gives you that measurement. Down here, as I say, it's in the middle. Now the back of the case with this big piano hinge across the top, yeah. Now that looks like a clone of the front to me. So I've given you all the measurements for that, other than the position to the center of that clip, which is 5.5 centimeters. So these are going to be 5.5 in from this side as well, and same up at the top, in fact 5.5. so you obviously see that the top of this radio, the very top section of it, clips on to the body of the radio. So quite easy to strip it all down. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the vibrator power supply off the bottom, or as it would be, battery unit if it was a true portable backpack job. Sorry about this cable here, but I have a feeling the guy who's going to buy this off me is going to have to do something about this, and depends whether he wants to actually make it function or not. He's going to have to maybe take the gubbins out of this, or buy a standard battery box for the base, and so on, and just put batteries in it. Right, so did I mention this thing is damned heavy? Right, what we have here, you should be able to, I'm doing this with one hand. Oh, be easier if I had two hands, but I'm holding the radio, sorry, I'm holding the camera. Tell you what, let's put the camera down. Okay, when you pop this open, it has this rubber jacketed plug system and cable, which easily jumps out. You see it's got, what's that, 6, 7, 8 pins in the centre of it. So there's 8 wires running from that side, from the power unit up to the radio unit. So in here you can see the radio unit. These are unusual, aren't they? They seem to have canvas in there, which is being cut off. So what did that canvas do? Webbing that's been cut. Maybe it's some sort of battery harness, I don't know. Anyway, that would presumably plug into the battery unit just the same. Now here's the vibrator power supply casing, and I'm guessing you can put this unit on either way round, so that will come out the back or come out the front, as long as you connect your plug here with an arrow on it in the right position. see here it says match arrows point to point, so when you put that arrow on the plug in, it must be pointing to that arrow there. So presumably you could put this in a couple of ways round. Again, it's got two big D-rings in here, so I presume you take these screws out of there and you lift the vibrator power supply out of its case here with these D-rings. Right, now, God, the weight is in the power supply. The vibrator power supply is very heavy. Now, this here hopefully will again unplug, but I'm not going to try too hard. We're going to push that over now, get this bloody vibrator power supply out the way. Why are they called vibrator power supply? It's probably because they vibrate when they're running, and they must have had some sort of mechanical device in them for adjusting, which gave you a different, a varying voltage of output. Now, I haven't stripped this unit down at all, but I'm guessing if you pop these clips here and here, that somehow it separates without having to take a load of screws out, but I could be wrong, and I don't want to mess around with it too much. See, there are some screws in this corner, and so I might not do this. I don't really want to go into too much stripping of this unit down. I'm going to give it a quick go and just see. Say I've got only two hands free here. Other measurement. Right, the lid on this, we'll say it's 9 centimeters from the back to the front there, and we will say that the height of the lid, measuring it that way, is 3 centimeters there. Now you notice that it's all very rounded, this lid, so if you were going to make that take a little bit of work doing it, what you could do is you could fold, if you could make this whole lid out of a flat sheet of steel, then you could maybe bend it over a block of wood which has got the shaping already on it. Then where you've got the corners coming down in the metal, you could possibly, if you're good with a MIG welder, you could weld these round, you could weld the corners up and then grind them and file them back into a smooth curved corner. Yeah, basically you could do that, and that would give you a reasonable look. Now in terms of the inside of the case, you'd have to mess around with all where you've been MIG welding inside. You could put some metal inside it and then weld from the outside onto the inner piece of metal, couldn't you? And then just leave some steel inside there. At the end of the day, it's not going to be in the way of anything if you had some 2mm bits of metal inside. There's other ways you can mess around with things like that. If you're trying to do some welding and you don't want a lot of muck going inside it, you can put something like a ceramic on the inside of the job that you're working on. Now that ceramic won't burn when you're welding, so you could make some sort of like concrete or plaster forming device which goes on the inside. Then when you weld it, you won't be left with a big lump on the inside because you've got this ceramic inside it, and that will stop a big lump appearing inside your job that you're making, you know. And then you'll only have to worry about grinding and filing the outer edge off. Now, back to opening this radio. Not done this, so what shocks will I have when, well, I don't mean electric shocks, but I should really have two hands free while I do this, to be safe. So I'm going to put the camera down for a moment, and then I'll pick it up again and we'll have a peer inside it. So doing this gently. Right, okay. You can just about see inside, can't you? You can see this is coming apart without a screwdriver required. Now I don't really know. One clip staying on at the front there. Right. Yeah, this is very similar to how I'm planning on making my unit. Okay. So, what I was saying before is, if I make my radio, I'm just going to make a large deep box, and then I'm going to make all the electronics. I generally fit PMR radio sets, you know, small walkie-talkies. I fit PMR walkie-talkie sets into homemade World War II looking radio cases. So all the gubbins I will put inside mine will be exactly the same as how the Americans did in World War II. It will all be attached to the fascia of the radio, so it will come out with it. And of course these days the batteries which you can put in these radios, I generally use some gel battery packs, and you can put some bloody big heavy gel packs inside this and it'll put some decent weight. If you can get some old second-hand ones, you could put a motorcycle battery inside the backpack, which will give you some decent weight, and it'll give you a hell of a long usage time. Bloody, like something like weeks it would work for off something like that. Now this is the inside of the radio. You know, this is how they made them back in the day. Lots of little bits of mica, and the components were just soldered from them. Discrete components, resistors, the old resistors there. When I was a kid, I used to take TVs apart, which were you know, in the like 60s, 70s TV sets, and they were still made very similar to this. Here are all the valves with lots of metal tubes, protecting tubes slid over them. Now you generally push these down and turn them, and they lift off like so. Do this gently, and there is your valve inside. You see they've got numbers on them, JRC 1L something on the side of that one. Yeah. Say they're a bayonet fitting. Say all the old TV sets in the 70s still used to be using valves. So I used to break a lot of these old TV sets up and throw all this in the bin when it was done with. Now here you've got the device which is part of the tuning. How have they done this? I would have thought it's geared inside there. Can't move it with my finger. I'm not going to force anything. So inside this casing here, I would say will be the tuning capacitor, or as they probably call it, condenser, tuning condenser. It's basically a variable capacitor. It's metal plates which run one inside the other, so one is your positive plate and one is your negative plate, and that's how the frequency is adjusted in these things, by moving one set of plates into another set of plates and changing the amount of coverage between the two plates. Anyway, I won't go into that too much. Here is the plug socket from the base, so that basically passed right through this piece of Bakelite or mica down at the bottom, and into that plug. So that looks like it's part of it. This rubber piece here and those 4 bolts and the plate are all one fixed socket which that plugs into. That makes sense then. So if this dropped in water, for instance, it's got it's rubber, it's well sealed so damp doesn't get into the set. And in the top of this radio there's rubber running all the way around, see? So this unit would try and be waterproof. There you can see there's a bloody big gear, a cog arrangement in the top here, which is the tuning, adjusting. So that there will be the dial, the knob, which I was winding before with the hand wheel on. So you've got that, which then connects into a set of gears. So yeah, quite nicely done. I'm not going to mess around with this too much. As I say, it's a friend's set. I bought it for him over eBay. This actually came from Holland. Someone in Holland was selling it on eBay. Now it could be that it's been lying around since World War II somewhere in Holland, and now I've got it. Anyway, I informative and given a few nice details, and I'm now going to put this thing back together. Now before I do, I'm quickly going to give you a measurement on this label here, which is 6 centimeters wide by 3 centimeters deep. And there you are, you've now got a nice picture of what it says with serial number. Now if you were smart, you could possibly print that off and make a paper sticker which you could stick on the top of your radio set. Hopefully I'm holding that steady enough. Let's see if we can get that. I tend to have the shakes these days, a bit like Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan. Can't hold my hand steady. Yeah, okay, so you can print that off and get it to the right size, and you could stick it on your radio set. Nice and simple. Okay, I hope that's been of use to you guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Happy building.